make it live then.
Okay, we can start then.
Good afternoon to all the participants for the third day and the third session of ICTiBLANEI-1. And yeah, and I would like to welcome you all once again. And today's session is Syntax 2, and it will be chaired by Professor Madhumita Borbora. She is the coordinator of the Center for Endangered Languages, Tezpur University. So I'd like to request Madhumita ma'am to kindly announce the session open. Meanwhile, there are 5 presentations which Madhumita ma'am will be letting you know. Ma'am, over to you, ma'am.
Madam, you are muted.
Just unmute yourself.
Oh, I think.
And is she disconnected?
Yes, it seems she clicked the wrong button.
Okay, meanwhile, I'll just read out the names of the presenters and presentations. So first is Toshimen Laau from Nagaland University, and she will be presenting on a brief study on the syntactic structure of Sanktam. Then Tanmay Bhattacharya from University of Delhi, and he will be presenting on the lack of argument indexation in some inner Tibeto-Burman languages. Then H. Surchandra from Tezpur University on non-verbal predicate in Manipuri. And then E. Manimohan Meite from Tezpur University, he will be presenting on the constituents of NPs in Kurum. Lastly, Jyoti Sharma and Tanmay Bhattacharya, University of Delhi, and they will be presenting on agree in Kukichin and Kiranti languages.
Thank you, Monali, for taking over. I lost the link. Yeah. We'll have Toshimala right now. Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
So Toshimala, she'll start.
Okay. Can somebody make me co-host?
You are already co-host.
Oh,
You can present. Yeah, you can present.
all right.
Both of your accounts, I have made
she has 2 accounts.
Yes, 2 accounts also are already made.
Yeah, both. Yeah, Tanmay sir is also joining. Yes, 2 of your account is co-host now, so you can present.
All right.
Yeah.
I think it's visible.
Yes, just make it full screen.
All right. I think it's visible.
Yes. You
All
can
right.
go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I thank the chairperson for giving me this time and the entire Tiplania Society for giving me this privilege for the presentation. Today, my topic of presentation will be a very basic study on the syntactic structure of Sanktam. And these are the topics that I'll be presenting in my presentation today. So in order to understand the Sanktam, they are found in the 2 districts of Nagaland, and which is why I've used 2 of the maps. And this is the map of Tunsang, and the other is the Kifiri, where we find the Sanktam people or the Sanktam speakers. So to have a brief overview of the Sanctum speakers or the Sanctum, let's see. And according to the 2011 General Census, the population of Sanctum is 67,047. And this tribe is also considered as one of the minor tribes in Nagaland. And they call themselves as Ethiopia or Isa Changere, even if they are known as Sanctum. Besides, the other tribes like Aus call them as Sanctumer, while Sumis call them as Lukme or Tukumi. And it's a Tibeto-Burman language exhibiting SOV and OSV word order. So it's a verb final language like the other Tibeto-Burman languages. Unlike the other tribes of Naga, we see that Sanctum language has no complete variation from each other, meaning their dialects are not very much different from each other, but there is a slight variation in the language from the northern Sanctum spoken in the Gyeongsang district and the ones spoken in the Kifuri district, which is why the northern Sanctum has Lungkim as their headquarters in Gyeongsang district, and southern Sanctum headquarters are at Kifuri district. Now, even if they have slight variation from each other, the official or for any other literature purposes or in churches, they use the Sanctum used by the northern Sanctumers. And they are the ones residing in the Gyeongsang district, which is why I use the data from the northern Sanctum people. And I also use both primary and secondary data. And the data collected were from the people aged from 18 to 50 years of age, both male and female. Now let's have a look on the consonants of Sanctum. These are the consonants that you can find in the Sanctum language. So moving forward, we see that Sanctum has 28 consonantal phonemes, out of which 10 are plosives, 4 are nasals, 7 fricatives, 3 affricates, 1 lateral, 2 semi-vowels, and 1 frictionless continuant, occurring at 7 places of articulation and 7 manner of articulations. The voice counterparts of B, T, and K are available in the language. Sanctum also retains the existing sense of velar nasal, which is N, N, M, and M. Now, like the other Naga languages, Sanctum is also a tonal language, and it has, so far, according to my data, I found that there are 2 tones, which is high tone and low tone. And for the vowels, they have 6 vowels, comprising of 3 vowels, 1 central vowel, and 2.
So she can you be a bit louder?
Oh, all right.
No.
And those 6 vowels are E, A, O, U, and E. Now, in the structure of sentence, we find that the word order is OSV or SOV. Usually it's the SOV order, which is commonly used, even if the OSV order is also exceptional. So I have used 4 examples. So the first example reads, I ate food. Then it will be written something like, 이장 주고. So it will be, I food eat, which is SOV. And that is the unmarked word order, which is commonly used in literature and in other official purposes. Now, for the same sentence can also be written otherwise, which is in OSV order. That is 장, 이, 주고. So we have food I eat. However, even if it's SOV or OSV, it's always the verb in the final position. So that is the word order for the sanctum. And we also find that sanctum is an isolating language. So I've used two examples in order to support that claim. So the first example, we find trunk, which is derived from two free morpheme, which is singdi, that is tree, and affabum, body. So when these two are joined together, they form another new word, which is trunk. And both are independent morphemes. So in next example, we have fur, which is body, knee, rub, and sh, clothes. When all these three morphemes are joined, then they form and derive another new word, that is towel. Moving forward to the phrases, let's take a look on the noun phrase. So the head noun in NP can occur either in initial or in final position. So example, we have beautiful flower, then it can be written as atza atza yungpi, which is beautiful flower. And that can be written as yungpi atza atza, which is flower beautiful. So either way, it's correct and it doesn't change the meaning. So the same thing we also find in the verb phrase, where we have the head phrase in a VP can occur either in initial or in final position. So I've used the example run fast, can be written as fast run, and it's exceptional in either ways. Now in adjective phrase, it's also similar where the head adjective occurs either initial or in final position. So for example, we have 10 dogs, that is faza tare, dog 10, can be written as tare faza, which is 10 dogs. Now, like the other Tibeto-Burman language, it has postposition phrase. So the head postposition in a PP occurs in the final position. So I've used two examples, which is inside the pot, that is fa poki. So fa is pot and poki is inside. Literally it means pot inside. So the postposition occurs after the noun. So next example we have on the bed, which is chung nung cha, bed on. In adverb phrase, we also find that the head adverb in an adverb occurs in the final position. So in the example, we see that katang kaile, which is very slowly, and the adverb slowly occurs in the final position. In the next example, we also find zepa kungle, which is so loudly, and the adverb occurs in the final position. Now here we see that in sanctum, verbs can also be negated by using the marker ma. So for example, we have will eat can be negated and become won't eat by the addition of the marker ma in all the occasions. Now moving forward to the pronoun, we have 3 persons and 3 numbers in sanctum, where E is the first person singular, which is I. And in the dual, we have icha, which is both of us. And in the plural, we have isa, we. And in the second person singular, you have ne, which is you. And in the dual, we have nature, which is both of you. And in the plural, we have nerapam, which is should be something like all of you. And in the third person singular, they have exclusively different words for both male and female. So if it's he, then you use apu. And if it's she, then use apakya. However, they do not have the third person dual, but they have third person plural, which is ara, that is they or them. Either way, they use ara. Now in the possessive pronoun, we see that the marker, genitive marker yo, is added in the personal pronoun and it becomes possessive pronoun. So in the example, we see Lizzie yo shamo. So the yo marker is added with the noun Lizzie and it becomes Lizzie's, which is possessive. Likewise, in the next example, we also find iyo shaka, which is my pig. So the genitive marker yo is added with the pronoun e. Now for the reflexive pronoun, we have the marker chang, and it occurs in a reduplicated form in all the occasions. So however, I've used only one example here, where we find that I chang chang ne chung kia che, I cooked by myself. So the marker chang is repeated here, which is chang chang, and that is the meaning of self. And this is the reflexive pronoun in Sangdam. Now talking about the relative clause, we find that it is prenominal or noun final. So we have the head and piece from the above examples where we have faza and shati occurs at the right position of the relative clause and to the left of the determiner. So we have in the maipa fazatse atrue. So we have the faza here now occurring at the right position of the relative clause and to the left of the determiner, which is the dog that I love is white. So the same thing is happening with the next example, where we have kaine kayoro shati hatsan nung tipe. So we have the shati, which is book, occurring in the right position of the relative clause. So here, the same sentence can be written in other way, where we find that we have post-nominal or noun final in Sangtam. So I've used the same example, the dog that I love is white, where we have the faza, and the next example, the book which you are reading is very big, shati. The head nouns occurring to the left of the relative clause, which is the head nouns occurring in the initial position of the sentence. Now, talking about the complement clause, we also find that in Sangtam, it can occur either in initial, middle, or final position of the sentence. Therefore, we see that a sentence can be written in 3 different forms in Sangtam. So to support this claim, I've used one sentence which can be written in 3 different forms, where we have Adi knows that I am safe. So we have Adi ne matile I afari. So this I afari, which is a complement clause, can occur either in final position, middle position, or in initial position, as shown in the example. Now moving forward to adjuncts, we see that in English, adjuncts usually occurs in the final position of a sentence, but in Sangtam it's not. It occurs in the middle position of the sentence. So for example, we have a sentence like Api killed the pig with a stick, then it will be something like Api ne shaka sin mapsiko. Literally, it will be translated something like Api pig stick. So the stick, which is the adjunct, occurring in the middle position So in the next example also we find.
3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Okay. All right. Ari gave a book to Azi. So this book, Azikam, occurs in the middle position of the sentence. So in conclusion, we see that sanctum is a verb final language, and it's also a postpositional language. Pronoun has a dual category, and the relative clause in sanctum can be both prenominal and postnominal. Sentence with relative clause in sanctum can be written in more than one ways. And unlike English adjunct in sanctum, occurs in the middle position in a sentence. And these are some of the references that I've used for my data, for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshi. Now the paper is open. We have 6 minutes, I suppose, and the audience can put in their questions.
Can I ask a few questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the paper to begin with. I just wondering if you know what kind of differences you note between Northern Sanctum and Southern Sanctum if you worked on both of them.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, there are not much differences. It's just that there are some word differences where they use different words for specific things or objects, and some slight phonetical differences where they have different sounds. Maybe the Northern Sanctum has shorter vowels, and the Kifiri Sanctum, they have longer vowels, something like that. But there are no drastic changes that I've observed so far.
They're mutually intelligible, are they?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, because they've been split apart for quite some time, according to what Hutton has written about, caused by the Sumi splitting the community. Can I also ask you, how did you collect your data?
Yeah, it was through interview method. I sat with them and I asked them questions, and this is how I interacted and collected the data. Okay.
Because what I'd really like to suggest, and this goes for all of the students who are working on these underdocumented languages, you really need to work with texts, record texts, and you'll find all kinds of things that you didn't know existed. Like, for example, what you're marking as nominative, you see that it doesn't consistently mark a S argument and an A argument. In fact, even in transitive clauses, it doesn't appear in some of your examples. So by calling it nominative, you're actually missing something. There's quite a lot of literature on this kind of marking. If you like, I can send you some references to that. Few more things. You call it isolating language, but your example, Matsunung will not eat, shows that it's actually a synthetic language with a number of morphemes per word. So again, this kind of thing will come out if you work on texts.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. I'll incorporate those ideas in my future data collection.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions?
Ma'am, there is a question by Tangi Changte in the chat box. Changte ma'am, you can unmute and you can ask the same question.
Yeah, I just want, going back to the first slide when you said, you could get either SO or OS in the example. And this is following up with Alex's comments. So, that's why I gave the example. If you can put the subject or object, interchange them, how do you know if the dog is chasing the boy or the boy is chasing the dog? How would you find that out? And the other question I had was in your paradigm you had of the pronouns, you had first person plural inclusive, but you didn't have one for exclusive. So I was wondering if, if there is one, or why did you say there was an inclusive? Because if you have inclusive, you also have an exclusive. So if you don't differentiate inclusive and exclusive, you don't need to, mark that. You just say first person plural. So that was my question. Okay. So first person inclusive means us, and that is just, that's everyone, and exclusive means us, my friend, and whoever's I'm referring to, and not the other people in the room. So that would be exclusive. So so if they don't differentiate that, then you don't need to put inclusive. That was just my comment.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am, for your comment.
Yeah.
I believe they don't have inclusive or exclusive different word for those two.
Yeah, so then just take out the inclusive, and
All
just
right.
first person plural is fine.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I'll do that. And I do not know whether I'll be able to answer the first question. That is, how do you identify subject object?
Yeah,
Yes.
because you gave the example of two, first one is, and it's the same gloss for the sentence, and you interchange the subject and object. So my question is, how do you know that they mean the same thing? But in the context of your sentence, you can tell that. But in another sentence where you have something like chase, how do you know the boy is chasing the dog or the dog is chasing the boy? So in those situations, how would you know? So
I think they might have a different marker attached to either the subject or the object. So this is how we identify.
Yeah.
But so far,
So
I
that
didn't
would be good to find that out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because in languages where you can interchange the subject and object, you have a way of marking one of them, usually the subject. So that's why you can move them around. So like in English, you can't, in a full, but in the English pronouns, you can, like, because in English pronouns, it's like I hit you and you hit me, you can tell that from the case marking the pronouns, but if it's not a pronoun, there's no case marking. So in English, you can't interchange them in English. So.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for your comment. I'll keep that in mind.
Observation to make.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, just a small observation. In the structure of the VP which you had given, I think you had said that the verb comes after the adverb and the adverb comes before the verb. And probably maybe you can say that it is the adverb which occurs after the verb, and the adverb can occur before the verb, not the other way around, because it is in the nature of adverbs to float and not verbs. So probably that can be rephrased. Thank you.
Okay.
That was a good paper, Tushi.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Are there any more questions?
Yeah, and then that would match with the noun and the the locational noun. So where you have the noun on the bed, so there the head is on the left. So if you so that makes sense with the adverbs. Yeah, Mimi. So so the head's always in the left. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I have a question to you, Toshi. When you use the reflexive self, it takes the nominative case, but reflexives usually occur in the object position. So the nominative there, that needs to be looked at. And these are just observations. I don't know. I need to look into the data to know better. And when you say postposition, you don't put PP, you have the crossing there, POSP. Other observations already Mimi and Alex has asked.
Okay.
Wish you all the best. And we'll get a better paper with more information. Thank you for your good presentation.
Thank you so much for all the comments. I'll keep that in mind for my future. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tanmay Bhattacharya, University of Delhi. Tanmay is here.
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, Tanmay, yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Nice.
going to talk on lack of argument indexation in some inner TB languages. Okay, it's
Okay.
yours, all yours, Tanmay.
Let me share.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Madhumita. Thank you, organizers. Nice to be among people speaking languages that I have been interested for a long time. So this is the title of the talk, The Lack of Argument Indexation in some Inner TV Languages. And I think the term inner needs to be explained a little bit since it's been used in various ways. I don't have very strict definition of it, but it is not really, well, it's partly geographical, but partly also sort of in consonance with the migration pattern. People in India, linguists in India would be familiar with inner and outer Indo-Aryan languages, first coined by, or at least summarized very well by Suniti Kumar Chatterjee in the early part of the 20th century, talking about the two waves of Indo-Aryan migration from the northwest of India. So that's inner from that point of view, and also it seems to correspond with the geographical situation. So what is this? Okay, first this talk is really talking about some archaeological, little bit of genetic and linguistic evidence. So it's not a syntax paper. If you're here for a syntax paper, you got to wait for half an hour, and we have another presentation coming up later on. So the archaeological evidence has been pointed out that in the archaeological literature, it has been pointed out that it is possible to consider the Northeast as a Neolithic culture. Okay, so Neolithic is, roughly, I mean, it differs from regions to regions in the world. So the Levant and other places, it may not really coincide with the same date everywhere. But roughly from the earliest Neolithic one would say that when the farming, was distinctly visible, especially in the Levant, and domestication of animals soon happened, etc. So that's around like 11,000 BCE to coming down all the way to 5,000, 6,000, etc. In fact, towards the end of the Neolithic, it's the potteries which appear. So here in the Northeast, it has been considered by at least one linguist, George van Riem, and other archaeologists who have been looking at it from actually 1970s onwards. And these are the objects that have been found in great quantity actually in the Northeast all over the place. So there is no exception as such as far as flat axe and celts are considered. And stone tools have been found in all over the place, as I list here the names. The first sort of excavation, which is not really talked about so much, it doesn't get the kind of publicity it deserves in the Indian archaeological discussion and research, is the first sort of excavation with very little funding was done in the 60s actually. So in the 60s, in Daujali Hading, a place in Assam, where the first excavation of the Northeast took place in 61 and also in 63. And there were a lot of surface finds, as you can see here listed, about 600 corded potteries, and of course those axes. So this is a picture of the excavation, and So in all likelihood, the Northeast was already peopled by early Neolithic culture. And you can see the potsherds here, sort of a collection of patterns. And you have seen, these are called corded potsherds, parts of pots, etc. And within the archaeological tradition, at least young archaeologists, and of course, as I said, from 70s onwards, this has been going on. So there was a dissertation from Gauhati University by Roy, 1970, where he discusses this. But very recently, Manjil Hajarika, a young archaeologist in Cotton University, have also been talking about this. And as I said, George Fundrim has also pointed out this fact, which I have listed here, that archaeological evidence for the Northeast Neolithic culture indicates that a branch of Tibeto-Burman split off the earliest from a common ancestor inhabiting most probably the southwestern Sichuan province of China. And the earliest date for such an intrusion into the northeast of India was set around 1,500 to 5,000, which is a bit, which is, not all agree about this, but it was pointed out by Fundrim 98 that this is by far the earliest intrusion into India of a Neolithic culture, as the Aceramic culture of Burzahom in Kashmir is dated around 2800 BC. Now let's go to a little bit of linguistics, and I'll just talk very briefly about my work in this domain. I've been looking at what we call in syntax as multiple agreement phenomena, and tried to show that the languages, Indo-Aryan languages in Bihar, are distinctly different in terms of agreement patterns from so-called the Sauraseni Prakrit of central and northern India. And you see a pattern like this. This is Maithili from published source, Yadav, O Tora Dekhal Thun. This thun part is something which cannot be decomposed, but it can be historically worked out as representing the glosses that I have mentioned here, third honorific and second non-honorific. So here it is very interesting that you get within the verb domain at the same time, and simultaneously, a marker for the subject and a marker for the object. Agreement here is shown in terms of person, but really in terms of honorificity, which is not very different from a person agreement. So this is, you can see through the arrows that this is what is happening, that both the arguments are represented in this. And this is the pattern that you will see in these languages all over the place. Actually, you can see it in Maithili, Magahi, and Angika, and also Kurmali. I have looked at these 4 languages in a paper in 2016. Now, this is not an isolated phenomena which is to be found as you move towards the east of India. So as you can imagine that these languages in Bihar and some in Jharkhand are to the east, bordering the east, sort of interfacing the east. And you see this also the phenomena you see in Munda languages as well, which are, as I'll show you in a map in the next slide, also do the same thing, that both arguments are marked inside the sentence. And you see this map where, this thing Bihar is where we talked about, to the east of Bihar. And then you see these Munda languages really concentrated on here. There's a pocket of course, southern Munda languages in the south of Orissa and bordering Andhra Pradesh, and isolated sort of Western Munda languages. These have been studied to some extent, but not very well. But what I'm interested in is this region and this topic, that whether these languages were in contact with Munda languages was a hot topic and discussed actually by various scholars in the last decade, you could say, of the 19th century and early parts of 20th century, by Grierson, by Chatterjee, by various other scholars who were involved in looking at these languages linguistically as well as in terms of survey. But of course, you find this, as many of you here know, and you must have seen some presentation or other, talking about person indexation or argument indexation in Tibeto-Burman languages. So this is from Podial's work from Chintang. It's a Kiranti language spoken in the eastern part of Nepal, and you see the same thing. You can just follow the color codes if it is sort of difficult to follow. You can see that there is third person and first singular agent argument are both marked inside this, and there are many languages which show this pattern. As you'll see in this kind of pattern, we'll see very similar pattern, you know, as 1 hour from now, when Jyoti and I will present our work on Amara, which is a Kukichin language, but with some differences that will be pointed out. So this is the rough area adapted from Bowman's great dissertation of University of Berkeley in 1975 and Schaffer's classification. And this is the splattering of the TB languages, Tibeto-Burman languages, which are agreement languages. Okay, pronominalization is sort of a syntactically, it's a kind of controversial term, and you know, I have spoken and written about it separately, so I won't go into it. Let's just pretend that these are all agreement. And there's this splattering of these languages, which you see in southern, you know, Kukichin area. You have this, and you have like isolated Nokte and some other languages that Scott Delancey also has recently worked on. And there is some in the southeastern China, but also the Kiranti, the Tibeto-Himalayan languages. So these are the agreeing Tibeto-Burman languages. So you can roughly see what I just talked about. There is this Amunda language in the green sort of blue lines, and you have these languages of Bihar, sort of Eastern Indo-Aryan languages in brown sort of shading here. And then you have these Kukichin languages here, and the magenta is that other, you know, Tibeto-Burman languages. So this is an interesting pattern, and this leads me to sort of think of this as a Sprachbund. So because I've been working on this topic for some time, of course you need, for something to be a Sprachbund, you need much more than just agreement. That's one feature. And that's a, you know, massive project, but my interest is in looking at the spread of multiple agreement in these languages, which are markedly different from almost rest of the languages spoken in this landmass called India. But then now this little arrow here shows that there is some gap in this. You know, there's this huge gap actually, and there are a lot of languages which are not agreeing languages. Again, a topic very, very familiar and been discussed ad nauseum in the descriptive historical literature by Delancey, Lapola, and whoever you name, whoever have done good work in this language families have had something to say about it. And it's been a little bit acrimonious also for last 3-4 decades. It's been going on. But I won't go into that because people are mostly familiar with it. I will instead now talk about an alternative idea, and I'll introduce this by talking about a brief sort of introduction to the genetic story that I would like to mention here, which is that it can be therefore, well, this was from Van Trim's work, and then there are a lot of work which this is adapted from Sahu et al. It's a genetic work on DNA and the haplogroups. So roughly we can conclude that there are two sort of migrations into what is called India now of the Tibeto-Burman people. One is a northern sort of Bodic, you can say, from the Kashmir area and then to the foothills of Himalaya. And the other is the so-called southern TB group incursion, most probably from Myanmar, along with probably Austroasiatic speaking tribes into what is now called northeast of India. Now, these two types of languages, at least this within the agreeing languages, Kukichin and Kiranti, have been noted by several scholars to be slightly different. So prefixal versus suffixal, and you see this in our later presentation. Then again, you know, a lot of debate on whether this is Proto-Tibeto-Burman in Kiranti, and in Kukichin, it is a recent sort of adoption, etc., etc. And of course, there's a large group of non-agreeing TB languages like Bodo, Garo, Lolo, Burmish, Naga, Meithelon. These are the, you know, large land mass, which I showed by that white arrow earlier, where you find this non-agreeing pattern. And this is also a well-known classification, the Rung classification. Again, bit of discussion and controversy about this in the historical literature. But again, I won't go into that. But these are the agreeing languages that you find sort of disconnected from each other. But are they really disconnected? That's the question. So Delancey had this solution in a 2010 paper. Later versions also appeared. The readiness of TB languages to shed verb agreement and to replace stem morphology, but that is a separate topic, is a result of common pattern in which an erstwhile nominalized construction, clause construction, is reanalyzed as a finite pattern and ultimately replaces an earlier finite construction. Since nominalizations do not have inflection, therefore you don't find agreement in these languages. Well, this is based on detailed historical or more or less detailed historical work and looking at some of the current languages with this kind of agreement pattern. What I'm going to conjecture here is there another possibility that we might actually have some other story, if not from linguistics, maybe from some other evidence, maybe culturally. So the players in Northeast that people more or less know about is, of course, Tibeto-Burman, and there are two branches, we can say North and Northeast, migration into the Northeast of India. And then is Austroasiatic, major presence of Austroasiatic speaking groups in the Central and Northeast part. There is third player, Taikadai, which people, at least those who are interested in Tibeto-Burman languages and the region know about, even if not the rest of the Indian scholars. So this is what we are going to now look at. And briefly now I'll refer to Kachin. And I'm happy to note, I hope he's still there. Kurabe-san was well in the participants, and he presented a nice talk on Kachin as it is in northern Myanmar, Kachin area. But here we are looking at the older literature, looking at the importance of Kachin. So you can say Kachin languages, like this is the Benedictine classification, which not many people follow because it underwent revisions as well. And you can see the importance of Kachin languages. So except the Karanic branch, all of them seem to have something to do with Kachin. And here I've highlighted Meitei here, Meiteilon, which is part of this Kuki-Naga group, right? But in his own classification later on, he sort of, there was a bit of the picture muddied a little bit. But let's look at some other things. So there is this possibility that the Northeast had this Kachin presence, and I'll talk about that. And Grierson also, as I was talking about yesterday, Dr. Kurabe's paper, that Grierson had noted, and other people have worked later on this grouping, Bodo Naga Kachin group, as early as 1903, as you can see listed here, the cognates in Jingpo, Namsang, which is Northern Naga language, and Garo languages. But now consider this landmass in the middle with the white arrow, which I showed in the map. Let's say Meiteilon or most Naga languages, you don't actually find this kind of cognate. So Meiteilon versions are Numit and Mai, which are quite different from these. And you can go through the list of all these words and see that. Now, so I'm talking about a third wave, obviously scared about that in the current situation, but the possibility we saw earlier of two waves. One is the Bodic northern incursion of the Tibeto-Burman speaking people into what is India through the northern Himalayas. And the other is the most probably the earlier one was the Northeast or the southern, let's call it the southern group of through the Myanmar into the Northeast. But there is possibility that maybe there is a third wave of migration as well. So now if you go back to my explanation of the inner TB languages, you can see what I'm trying to do, that there were earlier migration into the Northeast or the southern from the, let's say, southwest of China into the Northeast, Northeast means Northeast of India, I don't have to say that, into the Northeast. And later sort of the third migration into this area put these two groups, sort of separated them, one to the Kiranti side and the other to the southern Kukichin side. That's the idea, okay? This is just an idea. And you can,
Tanmoy,
yeah.
2 to 3 minutes.
2 to 3 minutes. Okay, I'll run through quickly. These are just maps you can see in Assam and also in Arunachal Pradesh, where there is the Shan languages which are spoken. This is a group, and you're familiar with some of these languages, some of the scholars here. But I will also like to remember the extent of the Shan kingdom, which is the Thai language speakers in the history of Northeast. And so from Assam to Manipur, there was a big spread of the Shan kingdom. And even according to Dunn, Captain E.W. Dunn, the Pong kingdom, which is a pre-Shan kingdom, extended in this large area from Assam to Manipur. And in the Shan chronicles, they also have chronicles like the Manipuris have Maithalan chronicle, Chaitharol Kumpapa. The Shan chronicle also lists this area and talks about in the the Burmese version of what Manipuris were called. And in present-day Manipur, there are many other examples, but I've taken this. Cowpea is called Pong Hawaii, and Pungdon for guava. Okay, so it is a corruption of Pong and Hei and Ton, youngest, the fruit, youngest fruit, sort of the fruit that last fruit came from Myanmar. So these are remnants of the Pong heritage in Manipur. And the other thing that I would like to remember, and some people might be familiar with this, that there was doubt about classification of Manipuri itself. You can find the literature in the asides. You'll find from Major McCulloch and Grierson. Grierson himself says at the end, the Kuki languages must be subdivided into 2 branches, Meitei and Kukichin proper. And I'm just going to end. This is the last slide. So basically, 2 wave of southern TB migration is what I am conjecturing. These facts, the presence of a Shan corridor from Shan state of northern Myanmar through Assam to Manipur, and the long heritage of the pre-Shan Pong kingdom suggests the gap in the multiple agreement phenomena is perhaps due to another wave of migrations of a different people during the earlier southern TB incursion into India. So this is the map to remind you of, and this is the 3rd kind of migration. And these are my conclusions. Archaeological and genetic evidence suggest an early Neolithic incursion of a TB group into India through a southern route, followed by a northern intrusion of Tibeto-Himalayan population. Linguistic evidence further suggests another wave of migration into India, but possibly a Tai-Kadai group of speakers. This 3rd wave, it is proposed, is responsible for overwriting the person agreement affixes. So you can see where what kind of position I take in terms of the debate, whether these are Proto-Tibeto-Burman or not. Thank you. Thank you, Madhumita.
Thank you so much, Tanmoy. This was a beautiful paper presentation, and it has made us aware of so many things happening besides describing a language. And it's open for questions. Audience, you can ask Tanmoy questions you have.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I've kind of been, following this archaeological and, DNA's evidence on the side. I don't know, are you a member of INTAC? The INTAC chapter of Mizoram has done extensive survey, especially the monoliths, and those, I think, well, that's just an aside. Well, the other thing was you mentioned the Austroasiatic and the Mon,
right.
And I think a lot of us don't realize that the Mon kingdom was quite extensive from Cambodia, and actually was part of, it precluded the current Burmese Empire. So the Mon Empire was existed before the modern Burmese Empire. So it's very possible that's where they came from. And I think you might have remnants of the Mon features in some of these Tibeto-Burman areas. So we can look at it both ways: Tibeto-Burman influencing and the other parts influencing. And the other thing is, what we call India and China today were not necessarily the same in the past.
Yeah.
So so even Sichuan might have been a common empire all the way to Southeast Asia, not necessarily China, because there was a lot of conflict between China and Vietnam also. So there's a lot of history of this area that we don't know. And there might have been a lot more contact, not just migration,
Sure.
but actually, a population, a large population in the area that got split up because of the different kingdoms warring with each other. So that's sort of my position. And I'm really curious with the DNA evidence to see how, this puts us together. So
Well,
thank you very much. Yeah.
thank you for your comment. Yes, of course, there's a whole story of the Mon presence and the migration route. And currently, actually, we're working on something much bigger than this, which is looking at through the eastern coast or southern eastern coast of Myanmar, and in fact, to the Andamans, to there, and tracing the route all the way, because we have Tibi speakers, Tibeto-Burman speakers in Tripura, right, who have actually migrated from Myanmar, and little bit in the Mizoram also, who have Moog speakers, 22,000 people, Moog speakers. But we have the Mon migration route also, little bit in Thailand, where it is all sort of not really patterned, but in Myanmar it is. But you find it in Assam. And I've written extensively about this whole migration story, and some of the people here are familiar with that. From 2016 to 2018, I believe there are 5 sort of parts for sort of non-linguistic introduction to this idea. So I didn't talk about the Mon. Talked about this Pong kingdom, which was connected with the Hmong, but it was not really the Austroasiatic presence I didn't talk about. I know I mentioned briefly about it, but the genetic study is actually, it's not that genetic studies are widespread. Quite a lot of work has been done. So you find this O23A, which is a haplotype of the Austroasiatic, very high presence in most of Southeast Asia, from Vietnam all the way to down there to Southeast Asia. But and you find that also, of course, in Austroasiatic speakers, and you find the biggest number in Nicobaris, okay, because Nicobar is like 100% Austroasiatic genetic profile, whereas in the Khasi you find interestingly a mix. So you get you find a 40% sort of O3A, but you do find a little bit of TB genetic, which is the N2 haplotype. You find that in the Khasi population. Interestingly, the Garo population in Meghalaya, which is a Tibeto-Burman language, will have a remnant of the Austroasiatic. So there's a lot of admixing happened between Austroasiatic and Tibeto-Burman. And that's a part of the story I actually deleted from this presentation because it is only 20 minutes. But China kingdom, there were very many kingdoms. I wanted to tell this to Kurabe-san yesterday. There was this the Sagagang area, the whole of that northern Myanmar, and the Shan kingdom, but also the Kachin kingdom. But what I tried to show here very briefly, I think maybe people didn't catch it, that the Kachin influence, although Grierson talks about grouping, is not lasting in the sense the importance of the Shan presence.
They were the horse thieves. They were all over the place.
Yes.
And there was the tea route, and also there's the ancient tea route, which went through the northern part of India and this part. And I think that is one other route that we need to look at, the tea trade, and because there were roads that people traveled, and that was quite an extensive commercial thing. So if you can leave your email, it's very interesting.
Sure. But there was a question from Tiatoshi Jamir. Would you like to ask? Would you like to ask the question?
Shall I read it? Shall I read it out?
No, I can read it. I thought that if the person is present.
Yeah, if Professor Tiatoshi wants to speak, sir, you are welcome to speak.
Okay, I'll read it. I am inclined to believe that based on contemporary historical linguistic research, the epicenter of the Tibeto-Burman language is very likely Northeast India and adjoining regions of the extended Eastern Himalayas, The view is also gradually supported by the emerging archaeological record. I think what Zamir is referring to is the rice cultivation evidence, and it is like mad. Okay, rice studies is mad, and again, people who are in Assam may consult Manjil because he has done good work on rice varieties, and there are three positions really about the rice cultivation. There is a strong group which believes it started in Northeast India, Assam, Brahmaputra Valley, but there is also other varieties, the Japan variety, and the most dominant, of course, is the China, because what is it called, phytoliths, the fossils of the rice sticking to the pot. Okay, so you found these pot sherds or parts of the pots where you have these phytoliths, the fossils, but that's a wild rice which you find, which is that goes back, the DNA analysis of that shows that it goes back to 10,000 BC. So that's probably the earliest, or caves in Thailand, going back to even further than that. But the question is about this rice, that wet paddy cultivation. So this is where the scholarship is kind of split. And I think I take these kind of things as an overall evidence for definitely a migration into what we call, I've been always careful to say what we call Northeast today, definitely with a pinch of salt, I would say, because neither linguistics nor archaeological, and in fact not even genetic, can give you one full picture. So altogether you might be able to get some control on what is happening. But I think what is important to understand is what kind of linguistic evidence that you're going to garner. And that's very important. That's why I don't want to talk about it today because there's no time. But looking at syntactic variation is very important. It's very difficult. That's why people haven't looked at it. Labov went in 60s and looked at morphophonology, and the whole tradition of variation is about morphophonology, not about syntax. Syntactic variation has made an entry last quarter of a century, and there is exciting work going on. But nobody is looking at syntactic variation in terms of, in consonance or in conversation with archaeology, genetics, etc. So that is what I think we need to do. And I guess collaborative work is what is important.
Okay, if I may just further add.
Yeah.
I'm not sure to what extent you subscribe to the works of Van Riem, but I've been following closely to his work and also his lectures on the Tibeto-Burman language, particularly on historical linguistics.
Sure. Yeah.
And his opinion is that the diversity of the language group is really diverse in the Eastern Himalayas compared to the Yunnan province and elsewhere. So in his view, he says that, it's very likely perhaps that the northeastern region and also the further extended Eastern Himalayas could be the epicenters of this language family group.
Okay, I understood what you want to say.
You're saying the reverse, right?
Yeah, no, actually Van Riem is saying what I'm saying.
There was migrations
I want to just comment on this. Van Riem's, if you look at it, depends on which work you look at, but there's some pattern. So he in fact showed, his 98 work, 94 work, he showed that there is the Tibeto-Burman corridor, which is just bordering the northeast of India, but falls within the southwest of China. Okay, and there is about 52 Tibeto-Burman languages there. Okay, so highest concentration of the Tibeto-Burman languages is actually in that corridor. And that's the corridor which China doesn't talk about, because China means Han Chinese and it means Chinese. It's a kind of stuff that goes on in many countries. China's neighbor India also. So you find a certain northern push from all this. This is the pattern, the politics and the history pattern. So the Han Chinese who came from the north sort of pushed the Tibeto-Burman people in China to the periphery. So actually you find this in the periphery most. And the periphery that Van Riem talks about is actually southwestern China. So the whole it's all the way from the north to the south, all the way. It's a Mekong Valley delta. If you just trace the Mekong River all the way to Vietnam, you will find that kind of variety here. And it is, in
So it
fact,
is
he
not-
argues very clearly. He shows in a map that number of dots is much more in that area. So it's quite likely that that is the place from where migration took place.
No, what do you mean variety? You mean in terms of the agricultural crops?
No, language.
Oh,
Tibeto-Burman.
okay.
Tibeto-Burman languages. Maximum number of languages. So there were.
But he was very specific. Let me just interrupt. He was very specific because I made queries on this, and he was very specific that it is Northeast India, and also what should be also cautious about is it is also very highly unlikely that rice may be associated with the Tibeto-Burman language group, because the archaeological evidence is suggesting from many of excavations in Northeast India is suggesting that these earlier sites do not have evidence of rice. We have looked at phytoliths, we have looked at
I've already talked about that. Yeah, but
So-
the correction that is needed is that I didn't talk about the rice. I said your question emanates from the rice debate. It is in fact the rice people who are, there is one position which is Northeast India, okay, and Vandrim follows that rice theory, but in terms of language, he is definitely saying from Peliagang for the northern migration. It's a very well-known paper of Vandrim, so you should refer to that. And southern.
Yes, rice is associated with the Hmong Min group, right? The Hmong Min.
Yeah, but we are not talking about rice, because I'm not talking about rice. It's very well known that rice etymology is Austrasiatic.
Right. Okay.
Quite possible that it is from the south, where the Austrasiatic.
I just brought this up because you mentioned Manjul Hazarika and the rice.
Yeah. That was in response to your question, because you talked about the TB from the northern TB is the concentration, northeast is the concentration of the origin of TB languages. That's certainly not what Vandrim said.
Okay, right.
Okay, then I think so. This conversation can carried over. Yes, Tanmay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I think Alex had put up some links.
Yeah. Alex has put it. You can.
Yeah, I just
you
shared
have some
some
more?
papers which suggest
Yeah,
a homeland further north, both done independently, drawing on phylogenetic evidence. I was going to also add that I like your idea of a split, one group going across the Tibetan Plateau, another group going down through the river valley corridors in the Eastern Himalaya. And another thing that we could perhaps look at is the evidence from syllable structure, because the sesquisyllabic syllable structure is very common in these languages that have passed through the Austroasiatic, the formerly Austroasiatic speaking area. Whereas the ones that went across the Tibetan Plateau, they generally don't have this sesquisyllabic structure. So it suggests different contact scenarios.
Okay.
Thanks for your paper.
Thank you. Yeah, because I said that, linguistic evidence we have to really carefully look at, and this is a good suggestion. Thank you. Okay,
then.
I passed the time, I think.
Yeah, it's okay. It's wonderful. Like, we enjoyed listening.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tanmay. So
Okay,
we'd like to invite the next speaker, Surachandra.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Let me share my screen. Is my screen visible, ma'am?
No.
It's visible in mine.
Yeah, it's visible. Yeah.
Okay. So.
Okay. It's okay. Yeah, now it's done.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for accepting my paper to present in such a platform. So today I'm going to present a paper on the topic non-verbal predicate in Manipuri. And so to begin with, I would like to put a brief introduction about the language. Manipuri, which is locally known as Meitei-Lon or Meitei-Lon is the first language of the people in the valley of Manipur and the second language of those for whom Manipuri is not their mother tongue. And it's one of the Tibeto-Burman languages of Sino-Tibetan family, which is placed in the Caucasian separately by creation 1904 and in Meitei branch of Kuki section by Saffron 1974. According to Bradley, Manipuri is put under the Caucasian subgroup of Tibeto-Burman languages, and it's also spoken in some other places of India like Assam, Tripura, and in some countries such as Myanmar and Bangladesh. It is the only medium of communication among the speakers of the different tribal languages that mainly inhabit in the hilly areas of Manipur. So it is the lingua franca of the state. Then next is the objective of my present research work. It is primarily focusing on how the non-verbal predicates are constructed in Manipuri while making a sentence wherein there is no verbal form or element in the predicate. In some languages like English, the copula verb is used to make a non-verbal predicate, which is syntactically a verbal predicate, and in some other languages, no copula verb is used in the sentences of non-verbal predicate. Whereas in case of Manipuri, copula is required to make such non-verbal predicate. Predicate is an important part of a sentence and it is also very much related to the subject of the sentence. It's the essential constituent of a sentence that functions to say something or describe about the person or thing which is being referred by the subject. Then next is the copula. While constructing non-verbal predicate in Manipuri, copula has played a vital role in making such a copulative sentence. After studying many works on copula construction of different languages, it comes to realize that the sole role of copula is to make a relationship between the two important parts of a sentence, that is subject and predicate of this particular sentence. In Manipuri copulative sentences, copula functions as an affix suffixing to the nominant form of the predicate and sometimes as a lexical item. Manipuri copula, which is used only in present time reference, is ni, after which nothing can be affixed. Its negative counterpart is natte. In the first example, like Tomba or Jani, which is indicating present time reference, Tomba is a teacher. Here, in this example, the copula ni is just attached to the noun oja, teacher, which is in the predicate position of this particular sentence. Then in the second example, Tomba oja natte, indicating present time reference here also. In this negative sentence, another copula na is used in order to make this negative copulative sentence. So another point which can be looked into it is the form of the copula while being used in sentences indicating past time reference. In making copulative sentences indicating to past time reference, another verb oi, which can be translated into English as be, after which some inflection affixes can be added. And in case of future time reference, the same verb is to be used, but the difference in between these two is for past time reference, the verb oi is to be suffixed with the aspect markers like ram, durative marker, and e aspect, simple aspect marker, whereas for future time reference, the verb has to be suffixed with the aspect marker gani realis marker. So in the third example, Mahag Ningthau Oirami, indicating past time reference, here he was a king. Here in this sentence, the verb oi is used. After this verb, the marker like durative marker ram and the aspect marker, simple aspect marker e is attached. And in the case of example number 4, Mahag Ningthau Oiram De, which is a negative sentence, he was not a king. In this sentence also, the negative marker the de is attached to the verb oi after the durative marker. And then in the case of example number 5, Romesh Oja Oigani, which is indicating the future time reference. Here in this sentence, Gani, the irrealist marker, is attached to the verb oi. And in the case of example number 6, which is indicating future time reference, and at the same time the negative sentence. To make this negative sentence, the marker roi, Irrealist negative marker roi, is just attached to the verb oi. So next is the nominant predicate. What a predicate is all about, the part of sentence which states or predicates about the subject of the sentence. A predicate has become a slot in which a nominant form can take place. If a nominant form occupies the slot of the predicate must be called a nominant predicate. In the case of Manipuri, the nominant predicates are constructed with the help of the copula ni, which covers the relation of identity, possession, purpose, benefaction, and origin. So in identity, while we want to show or make the identity of a person or thing, something the subject refers to. The nominant predicate in Manipuri can be employed as a means of representing the identity of the subject of a sentence, because there is something about the identity of the referent the subject refers to is the core function of the nominant predicate. In the example, Kumar Lomini, Kumar is a farmer. The Lomi, which is the nominal predicate, is just functioning to indicate the identity of the subject, that is Kumar. And in the example number 8, Nupa Macha Singdu Mahiroini, the Nupi Macha Singdu Mahiroini, the girls are students. Here in this example, the nominal form that is in the predicate, that is Mahiroi, is just used as the nominant predicate to indicate the identity of the subject, that is Nupi Macha Sing. Then next is the possession. Another function the nominant predicate is doing is to show one's possessiveness of something. It is formed by suffixing the possessive marker ki and copula ni to the noun which is in the slot of the predicate respectively. Here the nominant predicate followed by the possessive marker ki and the copula ni shows one's possessiveness of the possessed item. In the example, Purichi Gitagini, this is Gita's shirt. Here in this sentence, the noun which is in the predicate position is affixed with the possessive marker gi and the copula ni, just to show the possessiveness of this shirt by Gita. And in the next example, Yumdu Mohongini, that is Mohan's house. In this sentence also, the noun Mohon, which is in the predicate position, is just affixed with the genitive possessive marker ki and copula ni, just to show the possessiveness of the noun, that is a house by Mohan. Then next is the purpose. Quite distinct from the construction of other nominant predicate, it has its own way of construction. How this construction is different from others is that to make the nominant predicate showing purpose, the verb has to be first nominalized to make a nominant form. This nominant predicate is formed from the verb by suffixing the purposive marker na and the nominalizer ba, after which copulative suffix ni will be suffixed. In the example, haisi cha nabani, the fruit is for eating. In this sentence, cha is a verb, but here the verb is becoming a noun, functioning like a noun after having these suffixes like na, purposive, ba, nominalizer, and ni, copula. So here in this sentence, the predicatively used this derived noun is just used for indicating the purpose of this subject. That means the fruit, hai. So in the next example, ising du tak nabani, that water is for drinking. So the purpose of the water is to drink, is for drinking, is shown by this tak nabani. Benefactive, the nominal predicates in Manipuri can be used to show the benefited one. For this purpose, the nominal form in the predicate has to be accompanied by some obligatory markers like possessive, benefactive, and particularization. After affixing all these markers to the nominal form in order, the last affix added to the nominal is the copulative suffix ni. In the example, Lariksi Naubagi Damaktani. This book is for Nauba. So here Nauba is the person which has benefited the book. So in order to make this sense of benefactive, Nauba is first affixed with the possessive marker gi, and then after that Here comes the damak, the beneficative marker, the particularization marker, and ni copula. So in this way, the sense of beneficative is shown. Origin in the context of demanded to show the source or origin of someone or something, the nominant predicate can be used to show the origin. The nominant in the predicate undergoes a morphological process. First, the nominant predicate, which represents the origin, has to be suffixed with the ablative marker tagi or dagi, and then it should be followed by the copulative suffix ni. In the example, ngadu patagini, that fish is from the lake. Here, the source is indicated by this part, which is in the predicate position after affixing this ablative tagi and copula ni. Then next is the adjectival predicate. Adjectival predicates are clauses in which the main semantic content is expressed by an adjective. Pan 1997. Manipuri adjectival words are formed from the stative verbs by prefixing the formative or attributive marker a and suffixing the nominalizer pa ba, and some of them are formed without adding the attributive marker a, only by suffixing the nominalizer ba. If the adjectival words are used attributively, the proper forms of the adjective are employed, but they cannot be used predicatively because the proper adjectival forms cannot take place in the slot of predicate of a sentence. Here, in example number 15, atanba nupa. Here, atanba is the adjectival form qualifying the noun nupa, lazy man. Fajaba lay, beautiful flower. Fajaba is the adjectival form, which is qualifying the modifying the noun lay. Here in these two sentences, we have seen the actual proper form of the Manipuri adjectival form. Here in the first sentence, I mean in the example number 15, the tan is the that is the stative verb prefixing with this a and suffixing with ba. After that, we made this adjectival form. Here in the case of 16, only by adding or suffixing nominalizer ba, we have made this adjectival form, that is pajaba. The stative verbs which are having adjectival meaning in English exhibit the same grammatical properties as verbs do have. So when they are used predicatively, it cannot be said they are adjectival predicate. Ma cha thai, he drinks tea. Ma wangi, he is tall. Here here we can see the difference between these two sentences. I mean, thug is the action verb and the wang is the stative verb, which is having the adjectival meaning. But both of them have the same aspect marker. So wang, even though the wang, the verb, the word wang, which is having the adjectival meaning, is behaving like a verb. So when it is used as a predicatively, it behaves like a verb. However, some Manipuri adjectives can take place in the predicate of a sentence. There is a context in which adjectival predicates can be used only when they are going to describe or predicate about the referent of the subject, which is selected from a group to make it distinct from the remaining others. Here in this example, Laidudi Fajavani. Here, Laidudi Fajabani. Fajabani is the Fajaba is the adjectival form which is used now as a predicative form. This predicative predicative adjective is used only in the context in which a particular flower or a particular thing is mentioned. That is why in this context we can use this fajaba. And the locative predicate to make a proper to make a predicate which indicates a location, the existential verb lay, be, at, or exist is used combining with an expression indicating location. It makes a connection between the subject and the predicate of the sentence. The existential verb lay is used for making predicate of locative, existential, and possessive. In Manipuri, the expression denoting location in the predicate is always suffixed with the locative marker the, and then after it, here comes the existential verb. In this example, we do like call the like. Here in this examples, the locative predicate is formed by combining this existential verb lay with the locative expression like call the. And in the example number 21, ma chakum the lay, he or she is in the kitchen. Here in this case, locative predicate is formed by combining the same existential verb lay with the locative expression chakum the. Existential predicate. The existential predicate is meant to express the existence of someone or something. To make an existential predicate, the same existential verb lay is used for locative predicate. Here in the existential predicate, the expression denoting the location is used, but emphasis is given on the existence of something, maybe either animate or inanimate. So in this example, turenda nga lay, there is fish in the river. So an existential predicate for predicate possession. The first predicate possession had been discussed in the earlier part of the paper. The second type of predicate possession is to be formed with the existential predicate. Now this existential predicate can express the possessiveness or ownership of something. Here in this example, Rani gi pi amal lay. Rani has a cloth. Its literal meaning is there is a cloth with Rani. And Makhui gi hui amal lay. They have a dog. Literal meaning is there is a dog with them. Conclusion. In my conclusion, it has been clearly seen that the copula in Manipuri are playing a great role in making many non-verbal predicates. The copula ni is used in nominal predicate of identity, possession, purpose, benefactive, and origin. It is also used for making some adjectival predicates. For making sentences showing past and future time reference, another verb oi is used. For past time reference, the verb is used with the square marker ram or gani. For future time reference, and existential verb lay is used for making predicate of locative, existential, and possessive. These are some of my references I have cited for my present paper. And thank you for patience to listen to my paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Surachandra.
Thank
It
you,
was
ma'am.
a neat presentation.
Okay.
Now the paper is open for discussions and comments. And we have about 5 to 6 minutes in hand for questions. Yes, do we have any queries, questions? Monali, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one is coming in, so let me make one query. This is a very interesting and very clear presentation on the non-verbal predicates in Manipur. So yeah, this is one of the very encouraging paper. I have a, this is my, out of my curiosity only, the formation of Sa Nabani, Thak Nabani. Yes. I think you are trying to mean that even though the verb root is there, these two lexical items, Sa Nabani, Thak Nabani, their function is no more as a verbal in that position. If I perceive rightly.
After having this nominalizer, but it becomes a derived noun, even though its root is a verbal form. But after having, for this purpose of this thing, after having suffixes like purposive na and nominalizer ba, it behaves like a noun, and it takes, since it becomes like a noun, it takes the copula ni in this context.
Okay, thank you. And I think that may be typing mistake also, the sentence. I'm not remembering exactly, but Furito mag hakini or something was there. If it is glosed in such a way that
something like this, like hey sisa nabani, something like that.
Not one. There was a sentence. It was only for something.
Okay. Lariksi naubagi damaktani. Is that
naubagi damaktani? So yes, here this book is for nauba only. That is my personal opinion. And if only comes, then it can give the exact meaning of the Manipuri sentence. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have any more questions?
There is a question in the chat box, ma'am.
Okay, I'll check.
I think Surchandra can answer to it.
Okay.
I can't see. Is it from Shahid?
Can we let me read out, ma'am, and I will try
please,
to
please.
yeah. Can we treat rum as evidential marker as in your example mahag oja oirami? So for me, for time being, I think I assume this marker to be like something like a durative marker. It's something like evidential also. I think so.
Yes, yeah. Pritam has a point here to make. Yes.
Surchandra, this ni occurs even for adjectival predicate also. I missed the sentence. Like this book is good if I say it there. Then will you also have ni in that case?
No. No. She wants to ask, this book is good. Manipuri example. Whether the ni is there or not.
No. Ni is not used.
Okay, then Surachandra, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Very neat and lovely presentation. Our
Thank you,
next
ma'am.
speaker now is Manimohan Mete. He's going to talk on the constituents of NP in Peru.
Yeah, skill. Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yeah, let me share. Okay, it's visible, ma'am.
Yes, now it is.
Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon, ma'am, and good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'm going to present my paper is the constituents of NPs in Purum. So let's start. So before going to start, I just briefly start about the introductions about the Purum. Purum inhabited in the Kangpopi district, Manipur. Purum stands for both the people and the language. It belongs to the all Kuki groups of the Tibeto-Burman language family, Bradley, 1997. According to the 2011 census report, Purum population is 503. It is very less. It has become endangered today due to its emergence population and intermarriages with other communities. They don't have their own script and use Roman script for writing. It is about 40 kilometers far away from Imphal. So this is the location where I just collected data, my data, Purum village. So origin of Purum. Purum is the name of the community as well as the language. They are believed to have originated from Tripura. Some of the areas which they believe to be inhabited in Tripura are Aceh, Rangkol, Komdok, and Sai. The Purums are a nomadic tribe and used to move from one place to another in search of fertile land and water conducive to peace and comfortable living. Now, Purum Ligli and Purum Kulen are the only two villages of the Purum people, for Purum people. So, Purum Ligli village. So genetic classification, aggregation 1904 divided the Kuki-Chin languages into 4 groups: Northern Chin, Central Chin, Southern Chin, and All Kuki. Purum is included in the All Kuki section under the Kuki-Chin groups of Tibeto-Burman language family.
Ani, can you be loud a bit? Voice, raise your voice.
Okay, yeah. And then here, ma'am, it's audible?
Yes.
Okay, language. The language spoken by the Purum is known as the Purum language. It is spoken in some part of Manipur only. According to the G. in his book, Linguistic Survey of India, volume number 3, part number 3, 1908, Purum is included in the All Kuki Nagar group. The languages classify under All Kuki branch of Kuki section of Brahmic division as according to Robert Schaeffer, Introductions to Sino-Tibetan 1974. The language is not used in school or in mass media. They use Roman script for writing. So a little bit about the methodology. The methodology for the present studies were collected from both primary and secondary sources. The primary sources consist of observations during field work, interaction with informants. Secondary sources consist of various books and journals, etc. on Purum. So objective, to find out the constituents of the NPs in Purum, to discuss about in this paper, to discuss about the NPs elements of Purum, that is demonstrative, possessive, interrogative, adjective, quantifiers, numerals, relative clause, and postposition, which modify the head noun. So this paper will be useful to the native speakers and those people who involved in linguistics research. So overview of the paper. The first section, introductions of the Purum community, origins of Purum, genetic classification, methodology, and objective. The second section, the constituents of the NPs in Purum, demonstrative, possessive, I already mentioned here. And then the last section is the conclusion. So come to the noun phrase. The noun phrase is defined as constituents of a clause, and it can occupy the subject position and the direct object and indirect object position in a clause. It can have a bare noun or can have optional constituent which modify the head noun. So it consists of one or more words that are grammatically connected with the noun as its head. So structure of the NPs. The NPs in Purum are formed in the following different ways. They are demonstrative plus noun, and then noun genitive or interrogative noun, pronoun, possessive marker, and question marker, and noun adjective, and noun quantifier, noun numeral, relative clause and noun postposition. So come to the demonstrative noun, and noun. In Purum, the demonstrative hiwa, these, and then koa, that precede the head noun, as can be seen from the following examples. Example number 1, hiwa in this house. So hiwa is demonstrative and house is here. In example number 3, hiwa ngai in, for example, these houses. So hiwa ngai is the plural marker, and then houses in. So the proximal marker he can redundantly be used with hiwa this, and the distance marker ka can be used with the kawa that. So in example number 5, I have given. So hiwa hi kaita ZIE. So like ZIE. Hiwa he here. Hiwa means this demonstrative. He is the proximal marker. Kaita kai means first person singular, and ta is the genitive marker. Zadat and IE. So this is my book. So noun genitive. The marker ta is suffixed to the noun to indicate the possessor in Purum, as can be seen from the following examples. Amata zedet. So ama ta zedet. So ama is the third person singular, and ta is the possessive marker or genitive, and zedet means book, his or her book. So same case in example number 8 also. Merita ui. Mary ta is possessive marker, and ui means dog, Mary's dog. So interrogative pronoun plus possessive marker and question marker and noun. So possessive marker ta is suffixed to the interrogative pronoun atu, who, to means whose. Atu ta is then followed by the question marker mo, which in turn is followed by a noun. That is, the thing possess as the noun referent. For example, like example number 9, atu ta mo. So atu means the who, and ta is the possessive marker, and again question followed by the question marker, and after that noun. So whose car. So noun adjective. In most SOV languages of the Tibeto-Burman language family, both adjective noun and noun adjective orders are common. But in Purum, the noun adjective order seems to be more usual in the language. For example number 10, in akalok. In means house, akalok means is the adjectival marker, and kalok means big house. So example number 11, ui akating ning kai alai na putur. So ui akating ning kai alai na putur. So here the small dog says me. So here the ui means dog, akate the small one, and then ning is the ergative marker, kai first person singular, and then agreement, and lai is the past tense marker, and chase the nuputur. So the small dog says me. So same case in example 12 also, thoiba pasal akatai. Thoiba pasal akatai. Thoiba is the good man. So noun quantifiers. Purum has both numerals and non-numerical quantifiers for precise. For example, that is numerical and imprecise non-numerical quantifications respectively. For example, example number 13, tui glass somranga. Tui means water, glass, and somranga means 50, the 50 glasses of water. Same, example number 14, naipang alek anlakindai. Some children are playing. So naipang means child, alek means some, and anlakandai la means the progressive marker, kindai means play. Some children are playing. So noun numerals, the cardinal numerals always follows the head noun in Purum. For example, naipang intum. So naipang intum means 3 children. So in case the ordinal numerals can either precede or follow the noun. For example, number 16, naipang weraksangna alakindai. So naipang means boy, and then weraksangna means 5th, and alakindai means la is a progressive marker, kindai, the 5th boy is playing. This is here in the example, same example, we can, this ordinal numeral can precede the noun also, we can possible. And relative and noun. In Purum, relative clause, which is a nominal modifier, it is a nominalized clause. The relative clauses which are bracketed in the examples, so externally headed. Example number 17a, la kasak naipang nu. So la kasak naipang nu. So naipang nu is the girl, so it preceded by the relative clauses. So the girl who sings song. So in example number 17b, lai kasak naipang nu aseye, the girl who sings song has life. So here we can see it clearly. And then next is noun and postposition. Purum has a postposition which indicate the locations of a noun, whether the entity or object is inside, outside, above, below, etc. The locative marker a is used with nouns to indicate various other spiritual and temporal relations, as can be seen from the following example. Example number 18, table toya daro. So table toy means bottom, and a is the locative marker. So daro means give imperative marker. So here keep it under the table. So this is the conclusion. The present work is an attempt to describe the constituents of NP in Purum. In Purum, noun phrase is minimally made of a noun and obsonant modifiers. The NP's elements of Purum, demonstrative, possessive, interrogative, adjective, quantifiers, numerals, which modify the head noun, are clearly described. The relative noun and noun positions are also mentioned in this paper. So these are the references. And then, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mani.
Thank you, ma'am.
Neat presentation, a short one. Yeah, we have enough time for questions. Yes, it's open. The paper is open to the audience. Please, if you have queries, please ask your questions.
Mani, there is a question in the chat box. You
can
open it.
Which one? Can I read out, ma'am?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, this one now. Okay. Oh, can you mention the part of Tripura from where Purum was migrated? Is there any meaning of the word Purum? Still, I'm just looking forward. I'm so sorry, but I don't have any idea about that matter.
Okay, so meanwhile, when we are waiting for others to come in, it's a very informative presentation. Thank you, Dr. Mani.
Thank you,
so the Purum is very less in population. So
yeah, very less.
503, that is very less, I think.
Yeah.
I think so. Then in the secondary material that you have referred for your work, then what are the available material in the community that can be referred as the linguistic, that can be referred for a linguistic work?
Actually, Actually, I just collect the secondary one from one of the guy whose name is Gopendro. I have forgot actually. He already done the research work. Yeah,
yes.
Research work. Purum, descriptive grammar of Purum, maybe like. So I have collected from his.
Apart from that, this PhD thesis, is there any material like dictionary?
Yeah, actually, not dictionary, just descriptive grammar. A little bit about the syntax, a little bit about just highlight only, just mentioned. He mentioned about that. Actually, one thing is that his grammar, his PhD thesis and mine is something very different. Actually, I little bit slightly some different. So I'm just mine what is originated to this one Purumigli village. Actually, his his thesis. I don't know actually about that.
Acha.
But
Then
that's
what is the significance of your works when we compare to the existing work of Dr. Gopendra? What is your new findings? Can you give some line on that?
Net finding means I have given in this my this paper also. I have clearly shown that all those things, noun phrase also, and then what about the structure of NPs also. I have already discussed very clearly in his thesis. He didn't mention about clearly. So that's
Okay.
it.
Oh, so these are your new findings.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there is one more question in the chat box.
Yeah, okay. It will be nice to have a paradigm for the verb agreement. I hit you, yeah, I hit him, you hit me, he hit me, etc. I think Linda Colin did some work there. Okay, I will do next time.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned is this paradigm is it's very useful in the
I think it's
languages.
I will be.
So if you're doing that, that's one of the things people are going to want to know. So
yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. And the other question I had was, did you notice or look at anything to do with verb stem alternation?
What?
Verb stem alternation. Yeah, so you might want to, okay, let me write it up. That's another feature that's common here. It's called verb stem alternation, where you have two forms of the verb and it makes a difference in the grammar. So that's one thing you might want to look into, and usually the verbs are very similar phonologically. Sometimes the difference only is in tone, and sometimes there's segmental differences. So
okay, yeah.
But you didn't do anything on the tone, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you didn't do anything on the tone, right? On this.
Okay. Yeah, I will have it next time.
No, do you have any work on tone? Ma'am Changte wants to
know. Yes, I did it. In Purum, there are two tones, high and low.
In reference to the grammar.
Yeah. For example, like sang. Sang means high, and sang means high, and another sang one is pedi.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mani, there's question again in the chat box.
In chat box, no? Is Purum in danger? Yes, Purum is in danger, critically in danger. So what is the attitude of the speakers toward their own language? Actually, nowadays they are very critical stage. They are very in danger because of the intermixing with the other communities. So they are still very in danger, I think.
May I come in, madam?
What is the attitude she wants to know? Like,
yeah, Manimohan.
Yes, sir.
May I have a look at the beginning slide where the Mary's book
Mary's
of
book,
Mary.
Yes. Okay.
Genitive.
Yeah. Okay. Not the Mary's dog, sir. Mary's dog.
Okay, Mary's dog.
Merita Ui.
You just saw, can you show the slide once?
Okay, wait, sir. Just a few minutes. What happened? Okay, just wait here. Yeah, this one, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Merita Ui.
Merita Ui, yeah.
Mary's dog.
Mary's dog.
Can we can we also marry a Ui?
Mary?
A Ui.
No, sir.
No.
Yeah.
Means her or his.
Yeah,
right?
his or her. Yeah. So
we cannot
here,
say Mary
yeah,
a we.
yeah, sir. You can see in example number 7 also. Amata Zedet. Yeah, his or her book.
Yes.
So ta is the possessive or genitive marker here. I already mentioned here.
That means Mary's Merita is of in Manipuri Mary Gi.
Yeah, Merigi like that.
Mary Gi we.
Merigi hui.
Okay. And what I mean to say is, in our languages, this Purum language and other language, we means his or her dog. So in that way, in Purum, in the case of Purum, we cannot say Mary a we. Right?
Oh, no, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Tanmay. Yes.
Yeah, there was a data, I remember I briefly caught it.
Yes, sir.
We had the question marker more, right?
Yeah.
You maybe can show that. I don't remember the number. Maybe just
Yeah, here, this one.
Yeah. So the translation I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
There was another one, I think, with is it the only WH question you had in the slide?
No, sir.
Okay. No, in this one, the translation is whose car?
Whose car? And
is it would you say for a native speaker it means I'm trying to construct a cleft version, like whose car is it? You know, is that the more sort of nearer translation rather than whose car?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually this is a question marker which is kind of this sentence, it is with the question word.
Yeah, for example, like whose car is like that.
Yeah, but it can be at the end also, right?
Yeah, sir.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like Kanano.
Kanano, yeah.
Is it possible like Karmo?
No,
Kanagari, no.
No.
Karmo is not possible.
Not possible. Atuta mo car, like that. And then whose car and then whose car or something like.
No, so for example, what
in our Manipuri, we can say Kanagi car no.
Yes,
car
that's
no.
what
Like
no
that.
comes after the car.
Yeah,
So
after the
is it
car.
possible
But
the mo in the same way?
No.
Atuta karmo. Like
atuta mo. The here question marker is with possessive marker, not after the noun.
Why don't you try with some other question, like what is your name? Can you say, put the mo at the end of the sentence in any case? Any other questions, like this is whose, but what is it that you call yourself? Basically asking what is your name. It's like the French way of asking. So can you put the mo at the end here?
Yes, we can.
In that other question.
Yeah.
Mo marker, yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is because of the possessive here is making it a more concrete structure, and the mo is not movable. But in other questions where there's no possessive, just the mo attached with the WH word, there the mo can also appear at the end of the question. Maybe you have to check. I don't know about.
Yeah, I don't think you can actually split up this word. Atutamo is one. You have to consider one word. And ta actually in Mizo ta means like a possessive noun.
Possessive.
My possession.
This is a possessive marker, yeah, genetic marker. But the
not a genetic marker. It is actually more like a nominal. It can take some other suffixes. So it means like mind.
Nominals.
No, it's different. There's a genitive case for to show possession. It's distinctly different syntactically. So it actually,
how is it different?
Syntactically, it looks more like a noun in a lot of these languages, and a lot of people gloss it as a possessive marker, but it's actually not. So I think that's why you have this construction here, because it means like belonging. I think instead of saying possession, is belonging would be a better gloss for this.
Yeah, but ta I think is in this language, the ta is the genitive marker, isn't it?
Yes.
It has become the genetic marker.
Yeah, genetic marker.
But historically, it was independent, so it's fused in this construction. That's why it doesn't really help to split it up into these units, and this is quite common in this language.
No, the unit is, I think the unit that I'm talking about is the question marker mo. I'm not talking about
no. What I'm
the
saying
noun.
is the atutamo is one word. You cannot.
I don't think so, because he said the mo can be split in other questions.
Yeah,
This is because it is whose.
But
this
historically,
is who and then genitive makes it who, right?
historically you could, but in these languages, in these kind of WH words, you can have it where you can actually see what the parts are made up of. But if you split them up into those parts, it doesn't make sense syntactically.
No, historically it does. In Manipuri, you can do it. In many.
Well, it is not like Manipuri. I know languages that are more similar to this than Manipuri, and they do function like this. So so
Tibeto-Burman in general allows that question marker to come at the end of the sentence. Here, I'm asking whether in Purum you can do the same for other questions, not this whose question, but who, like.
Well, what I'm saying is you in these languages you actually have two parts to a WH question. One comes before, one comes after, and in some languages they're fused, so they're actually one word. So even though you can see the parts, if you divide them up the parts in syntactically and try to move them, you can't do that. That's why, because they're already a unit.
No, I think
but you can actually still see you can still see the ingredients.
The question marker is very common in Japanese. You get the same.
No. What I'm saying, in these languages you have two WH markers. One comes before, one comes after. And
so one is a question marker. WH is the quantifier word, right?
No, you have to take them together.
It's not a WH marker.
WH marker is not there. No, I didn't say WH marker. I said WH words.
Yeah.
You have two parts.
You have to distinguish between these two, WH and Q. Q is a marker. Of
No. I understand that. And what I'm saying is in WH questions, you have a construction where you have two parts that indicate the question.
Excuse me.
And then something is in between. So that's why you have this construction.
Anit, could you provide us the interrogative sentence?
Yeah, excuse me, sir. Yeah. Who are you?
I've been asking that.
Yeah. Who are you?
Who are you?
Yeah, example like who are you? So in Purum, nang atumo.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, nang atumo.
Yeah.
So nang means you and atu means who, and mo is the question marker.
Yeah, that's not a different question marker. It is just a question marker which is appearing at the end of the sentence.
Yes.
This is totally morphologically analyzed.
So how do you say, is this a car?
Huh? What do you
mean?
Is this a car?
This is the car.
Yeah, is this a car?
Yes, no question.
What is this?
What
is this? Is this a car?
This is the car.
Is this a car? Yeah. Is
this a car?
And this a car. Hiwahi car ai.
See, that's your question marker.
Yeah, not question marker.
No, that's a yes no question.
Yeah, yes, so that's a question marker.
Yeah, but there's nothing to do with this one. That's a yes no question marker.
Yeah. So you cannot call this more a question marker. This is in reference to other languages related to this. You cannot compare it to other language grammars.
Purum doesn't have it has a
yes. No, I know languages closely related to this. That's why I'm basing it on this. And I know languages that have very similar constructions. So anyway, we don't have time for that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Tanmoy. Are there any more questions? Oh, Carolyn, yes, please. Carolyn, please ask your question.
Just want to comment on the controversy about this atutamo. Okay, we have in Garo we have a very similar construction. Yeah, gari sani sai. Okay, gari will come first. Okay, sani sai. Sa means who. Ni possessive. Sai question marker.
Question marker. Yeah,
you cannot separate this. Okay, we cannot take away. Of course, you can suffix sai. That's a question marker to other. But when you say the word sani sai, you cannot separate them. They are the same. You cannot separate them, and you cannot take them out from each other. So it should form one complete unit. Sani sai. So this is the only thing that I want to put in, and then there are other points, but I think other points of similarity also I see lexically and otherwise. Okay, but I'm not going into that. But this one I want to clarify. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Mani Mohan, can we interchange the two words atutamo and kar? So, for example, kar atutamo. Can we say like? Can we ask the question like that?
When you saw that slide.
Can there be a word order change?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can change.
Yeah, that is what exactly we have been talking about.
Yeah, we can change. For example, like kar atutamo, like that.
Yes,
we can change. We can.
Yeah. Word order change. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Ani, can you show that noun numeral once? That slide.
Okay. This one.
Yes. So yeah, in your example number 16.
Yeah.
So 3PL and progressive play. So the progressive marker is coming before the verb root. So
Yes. In Purum, this is a kind of unique feature for Purum.
That's what I was wondering. Is it a typing mistake or is
no? This is the
okay.
feature.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the past marker? It's come before the noun. Before the verb root also, or it follows.
Past marker also in the middle. Lie.
The boy played.
The boy play, like for example, unlike in die, like that. Unlike in die. So la is the progress marker and the past marker is lie. L-A-I, lie. So unlike in die, like that.
Like in die.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
this is the this is the
strange, no?
Yeah, this is the unique feature for the Purum.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. What's welcome.
So that means your tense and aspect markers are prefixing.
Past tense is the prefix and the future marker is suffix. Perfect and futures are suffix.
Oh,
yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Okay, progressive and past, it will realize as the prefix.
Prefix.
As a future will be
perfect marker and perfect marker and then future marker is suffix.
Okay.
Okay, coming back to that possessive, the genitive, I was wondering whether the ta was the predicate a possessive form and not the other one. So this dog belongs, actually you're saying this dog belongs to Mary.
Mary, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Not Mary's dog.
Mary's dog.
Yeah, because there is a difference between my house and it is mine, in English. So my is different and mine is, and mine is the predicated form. So that is why in the other one, whose dog, you have that ta, coming in,
Yes, ma'am.
So probably it's the predicated form of the possessive.
Yeah.
How will you say this is his book? Will the ta come there?
Ma'am?
And is there a difference?
His book.
This is his book or her book?
This is his book. Hiwahi Jadet Atta. Hiwahi.
Or this book is his?
This book is Hiwahi book. Hiwahi Jadet.
The ta will not come there?
Mani, are you confused? There are two sentences Mimi ma'am is asking you. One is this is his book and the other is this
Okay,
book.
just let me.
I think at this moment, madam, he may not
give you
probably
a clear-cut
this
can be taken up later on.
Yeah.
He's not a native speaker.
He's
so
not a native.
Oh, I see. Okay. Sorry. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Mimi, done?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the time.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
So thank you, Mani.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am.
Interesting data.
I learned so many questions and so many comments.
Yeah.
So thank you
So
so
you have
much.
to, yeah, you have to look into all these
Yeah,
issues.
actually one thing is that I'm not a native speaker, so I'm just trying to in my best. So
Okay,
thank you so
okay,
much.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. So the last paper today is by, the final paper of the session is by Jyoti Sharma and Tanmoy Bhattacharya. It's on agree in Kukichin and Kiranti language. Yeah.
Jyoti, are you going to share it or shall I share?
Where is Jyoti? She was here earlier.
Jyoti, you're muted. Please unmute.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, there was a power cut. That's why I had to rejoin and I'm not a host anymore. So I think you have to make me host again.
If you want, I can share it.
Yeah. Can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So you can share and I can present from here. So the topic.
Just one clarification that this might be difficult for you to read. We normally don't do PPTs for syntax talks. So, but there's a handout, and if anybody wants it, I'll upload it later on. But right now, you can follow the handout.
Yeah, please do. We'll need like to do that.
Yeah, shall I start?
Yeah, please.
So the topic of our presentation is Agree in Kukichin and Kiranti languages. This is a joint presentation. So the plan here is to compare two agreeing Tibeto-Burman languages broadly across the following paradigms: direct versus indirect alignment of indices with respect to the agreement, person and number feature split of the argument or arguments, and negation affecting inversion or causing the movement of certain indices in both of in these languages. So we then briefly present the analysis of the data pattern by applying bottom-up cyclic agree in syntax and merger under adjunction in the morphology to derive the affix alignments. The analysis part will be presented by Tanmoy Bhattacharya. So the Tibeto-Burman language family can be broadly divided into two groups. Sir, can you just roll it? You are the one who is presenting. So Tibeto-Burman language families can be broadly divided into two groups. So on one hand, we have languages that exhibit very rich agreement paradigm, whereas on the other hand, we have languages that do not exhibit any kind of argument indexation at all. Our paper capitalizes on the former type of languages with special focus on Kiranti and Kukichin languages, where the morphological expression of argument in the verb complex appears to have a complicated correspondence to the syntax. So the two representative languages taken here are Mara, a Kukichin language spoken in the southernmost part of Mizoram and also in some of the adjoining areas of Myanmar, and Bantava, a Kiranti language spoken in eastern Nepal, in Sikkim, Darjeeling and Kalimpong areas of West Bengal, and also in some parts of Bhutan. There are some features which are common to all the agreeing TB languages. Those are the verb complex consists of multiple agreement slots for multiple arguments, and the controller of these slots cannot be merely categorized in terms of grammatical roles. So the indexation of argument is sensitive to the person hierarchies rather. And thirdly, the verb agrees with the person and number feature of the arguments, and the agreement is limited to pronominals only. Sir, can you slide?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's look at the person marking in Amara and Bantava. So here are a set of sentences. 1 to 5 shows the Amara agreement in affirmative Mara agreement, sorry. Yeah. So in sentence 1, as you can see, when the alignment is 1/2, I pulled you, we have both the person suffixed to the verb. A is the first person marker, cho is the second person marker, and both are being prefixed. And in 3, where the alignment is 3/2, we sorry, the third one I'm talking about, 3/2, we again get both the persons are prefixed to the verb. And let's look at the sentence 2, where only the subject is being prefixed to the verb, since a third person object is not morphologically marked in Mara. Yeah. So can you slide?
Yeah.
And now let's look at sentences 4 and 5. So here the configuration in 4 is 3/1. You pulled me, and in 5 the configuration is 2/1 and 3/1 in 5 respectively. So in 4 we can see only the object's person feature is being indexed on the verb, that is only first person is being prefixed, and the subject here is now being suffixed. Similarly in 5 only the object is being prefixed and subject is not marked at all, since the third person subject in this kind of configuration in inverse order is not morphologically marked. So in Mara we have 2 templates. So can you slide? Yeah. So in Mara we have 2 templates, one for direct and one for indirect. So in direct, both the person features are being prefixed, and in inverse we see that only the object is being prefixed and subject is now being suffixed. See that however this 3/2 configuration, as we saw in third sentence, 3/2 configuration, where third person subject is more patient-like and second person is more object is more agent-like, we don't see in inverse template emerging. Rather, it follows the direct template here. Yeah, so the person hierarchy, we can say that it is limited to 1/2 or 3. Now let's look at negative paradigm. So here are the sentences for negative. Chamhau Veina and Namhau Veichi, where the object is being prefixed, person is being prefixed, and subject is now it is suffixed. This template is very similar to what we saw for inverse affirmative construction. And note that it is a very interesting fact about Mara that this switch of indexation, subject indexation to the suffixal position, is a primary way of signaling negation. However, there is a negative particle way which can be affixed, but which can be suffixed to the verb. But normally in normal situations it is dropped, and in colloquial speech it is always dropped. So can you slide? Yeah. Bantava also showcased the similar kind of person marking, where so let's look at sentences 9 and 10. So in sentence 9 the alignment is 1/3. Where first person is acting over third person, and in 10 we see that third person is acting over first person. So in 9, Ang is marking the first person, is marking the subject of subject, that is first person, and in 10 however we see that Ang is occurring in the same slot, but it is representing the person of the object. So we can clearly see that person hierarchy wins over the grammatical role, where first person, regardless of being subject or object, is suffixed to the verb. In 8, however, we see that there is a portmanteau morpheme for 1/2. And yeah, let's look at 11, where the configuration is 2/3. You hit her, where khana kho tidhatu, where you see that second person is being prefixed, whereas the third person is being suffixed to the verb. So this clearly shows that, like Mara, indexation as well as the ordering of indices in the verb complex is dependent on the person specification, rather than the grammatical rule, grammatical specifications. In negative past paradigm, we see in Bantava negative past paradigm, negative particle is prefixed to the verb, as you can see in 12 and 13. In 12, Anka Khana Man Dhatna, where man is being prefixed to make a construction negative. However, when the configuration is 2 over 1 or 3, whereas we saw in 11 that second person subject is always prefixed to the verb, when it is in the negative construction and when man is attached to the verb complex, it results into the movement of the second person prefix to the suffixal position. As you can see in 14, mana kana ko man dha tu do, to do, where t which was is in the prefixal position is now shifted to the suffixal position due to the prefix negative marker man, and same can be seen in 15. So can you slide?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now let's look at the number marking in Mara and Bantava. So Mara has 2 number slots in affirmative direct verb complex. So one is suffixal and the other is one is prefixal and the other is suffixal. The prefixal slot is always controlled by the subject, and the suffixal slot is controlled by the object in direct construction and subject in the inverse construction. So in 16, which is a sentence for one plural over first plural over second plural configuration. So macha parai a, where ma is ma. So clearly we can see that there are 2 plural morphemes in Mara, ma and a. So ma is here indexing the plural for subject, whereas a is indexing the plural number for the object. In 17, the post-verb, the suffixal plural a is being controlled by the object. In 17, the order is inverse here, where second person plural is acting over first person singular. A na parai a chi. Here we see that only one slot is available, and it is being controlled by the number feature of the subject. Further, here we can see the clear number and person split for both the arguments. And in case of object, it is very clear where the person of the object is being prefixed by, in 16, as you can see that it is being, cha is the person morpheme for the second person, and it is being prefixed, and a is a number which is being suffixed to the verb, and it is representing the same it is also representing the object. So when both the arguments are plural, or when the object is a plural, a portmanteau morpheme mania for first person plural is prefixed to the verb, as you can see in 18. Mania parai chi, where we see that we don't there is no person feature split, and mania is used for person and number. Yeah. So please slide. So in the negative construction, like inverse construction, there is only one slot available for number marking in Mara, which is either controlled by the subject or object or both. Hence, it shows the omnivorous number agreement, where in 19, as we can see, that the suffixal number slot is being filled, can be filled by the subject or object or both. So it can also mean chaparai by a can mean there is a mistake, he didn't pull you, or it can also mean they didn't pull you, or it can also mean they didn't pull you, plural. So, and we can see clear, so person feature split can also be seen in Bantava, where so here in 20, 2/3 configuration, where the subject is plural, you plural, khana chi ko, ti dhat ichu, where ti is indexing the person feature of the subject, and chu is indexing the number feature of the subject. Further, Bantava only has one number slot, hence giving us omnivorous number agreement throughout the paradigm. So in 22, we can see ti dhatni can also mean, you hit them, or you plural hit him, or you plural hit them. So in the summary, we can say that both languages display indexation switch under certain circumstances. Mara follows two templates in affirmative paradigm. So one is for direct, where both the persons are being prefixed, and in inverse, only the object's person is being prefixed and subject is being suffixed. And in negative paradigm, Mara follows the same template as inverse, where object is being prefixed and subject is being suffixed. And when it comes to Bantava, we see there are three different templates, and unlike Mara, it is not in complementary distribution here. And as we saw, person number split is a norm in both of these languages. And portmanteau morphemes are very limited, though there are very few. We find some portmanteau morpheme in both the languages. So next is the analysis part, which we will limit to Mara only, and it will be presented by Tanmay. Yeah. So you can proceed.
Okay, you've taken what, 15 minutes? How much time we have?
Almost time, yeah.
5 minutes.
Please continue.
Yeah, we'll take a little bit longer because I think there won't be many questions. Now that everybody is thoroughly confused by this complex pattern, let me confuse you further and try to propose an analysis. We've been working on this for quite some time, and a very large version, probably the final version, is going to appear this year from a book from Oxford University Press. But here is the analysis, a glimpse of it. Not everything can be talked about, but the main challenge is analyzing this disharmonizing affix order, that is prefixal you get. And that's the main difference, I think I mentioned in the last talk, between the Kuki-Chin languages on the one hand and the Kiranti languages on the other hand. So it's this prefixal in SOV languages, and very few people actually discuss this. Of course, in the historical literature, it has been discussed. So Guillaume, for example, has a good paper in Lingua in 2013, where he gives these three possibilities, that there's a diachronic reason, prosody-related reason, or a cognitive reason, and settles for, I think, diachronic reason. But but within the syntax literature, and here we're referring to a very current work. For example, this work, Despich, Hamilton, and Murray, they concentrate, the people who look at Algonquin languages, Athabascan languages, they have similar phenomena, but they concentrate on languages where this disharmonizing affixation does not appear. And also they talk about inner suffixes, which are not really problematic. Then there is one paper by a Western scholar, Georgi, Doreen Georgi. They had a project in Leipzig about Kiranti languages, and they looked at published sources, 2017 in Hayu, but that doesn't have, it's a Kiranti language, it doesn't have prefixes. So languages choose both prefixation and suffixation in inflected complex manner, and that needs to be accounted for in some way. There are tools, I believe, which can handle this kind of disharmonizing affix order. And what we are proposing is, of course, we have been working on this syntactic derivation of these morpheme orders, but of course, syntax in combination with morphology. And here's a little bit of a diagram for students familiar with this inverted Y diagram for many decades now, that you have the syntactic derivation, and there is a spell out point where you go to the phonological form and the logical form, meaning broadly sound and meaning. But there is also morphology in between from spell out to PF. And what we are suggesting is that syntax only gives you the hierarchy, the syntactic checking mechanism gives you the hierarchy, but it is morphology which spells out the morpheme order. And unfortunately, I won't be able to get into detail of it because we don't have much time left, but we'll assume that like we have mixed headedness in syntactic head order, for example, German or Dutch, okay, or even Hindi Urdu, where you find the complement clauses to be SVO and the main finite clauses to be SOV. If that is possible, mixed headedness is derived in syntax. We want to suggest that in morphology too, mixed headedness can be allowed. And we propose this prefix and suffix orders because you saw from Jyoti's part of the presentation that we have both prefixes and suffixes. In the inverse order, the suffix becomes more important. So we are doing this merger under adjacency, remnant from the distributive morphology framework. And this may not actually correspond to the syntactic headedness. So in syntax, it will be SOV, but the morpheme order need not, go along with that. So we state something like affix. We use something like affix specific linearization. It's really the character of the affix which determines how is it going to attach. So a very brief and relatively abstract sort of derivation I'll sketch for you, and I'll leave it at that. So this is exactly what the patterns we saw. And just to go, let you go through one of the examples. So this was the direct pattern where number is not involved, only person. So just look at the table in the first cell, and order is first person subject and second person object. And we see that both affixes are prefixal or proclitic. Okay, so they are in front of the verb. They are attached with the verb. And in negation, we see a difference. The object clitic, object agreement marker or argument index, whatever you want to call it, is enclitic. It's a post-verbal position, not prefixal, suffixal position. And in inverse, we see exactly what it means. We see inverse, but negation and inverse together, it doesn't, it has certain other effect. And similarly, you can go through, I'll just go through one example here. The first cell here, here you see that you have a combination of person and number. So first person plural is the combination of person and number, and second person plural is the object. Now you see how the affixes are lined up. The subject affixes are both in the prefixal position, and even the person of this. And this is what Jyoti meant by saying the number numeral, this slot is in the post-verbal position. So the plural is marked here. But of course, here the subject number is marked prefixally as well. And here you see a very funny phenomena where you see exactly like this. Before the first subject, person and number both are marked before the verb. But in the negation, what you see a kind of a switch. Okay, so it's not inverse. In the negation paradigm, you see a switch of the person and number marker. This, I believe, is not been observed in descriptive literature either, and certainly not in the syntactic literature. I must clarify that there's no syntactic studies on this. Okay, and this is probably one of the first attempts at giving a formal analysis of this. So now I won't take much time, and I will, oh, okay, the tree has not come, but that's all right, because I can just draw it for you. Yeah, so this is the, so basically we're considering every pronominal to be structured like this. Okay, so a pronominal or a NP has a person feature, is very much part of the structure, and number feature. And sometimes, as we saw in the first line here, number features are not important, but here the number features are important. So the derivation I'm going to show only two derivations here, and it is rather complicated, and I think many people won't have the background of the kind of syntax that we are proposing here. So I won't go into the details of the theory. I'll just show you in terms of the schematic sort of thing. So this is the whole tree split into two cycles. So one is the VP domain, the verb phrase domain. Other is the subject domain, which is the inflectional domain. We are calling it TP here. Okay, so there is the TP domain here and the VP domain here. And the first cycle, so derivation is kind of bottom up. Okay, it's bottom up, and the first cycle is really you start from looking at the main head of this verb phrase, which then copies the person number, because we are not interested in number right now. So I put the number in lighter arrow, but person in darker arrow. The person feature is copied onto here, and then you go to cycle 2, where the person feature of the subject is copied onto here. So this is our object position, and this is the subject position. So subject person feature is copied onto here. And if you had both number and person, then you should consider the lighter arrow as well. And they're sequenced. So that's basically what we're suggesting, that in this bottom up kind of agree relations, you do the bottom feature. So in this tree, number is at the bottom. So bottom feature is copied first, and then the person feature, and the one above this. Okay. And then you go up to this T cycle, or the inflectional cycle. You can call it inflection as well. There also you do the same thing. So you go by number first, bottom, and then person. So the sequence of the copying is actually decided in the morphology, which I briefly sketch here, where the cycle 1 is kind of spelled out separately and then inserted after cycle 2 is complete, and you get the order of the morphemes. That is this first cell. These two things only I'm giving some analysis of. And in the inverse, this inverse morphology is inserted in cycle 1 itself, because we are proposing a rule that in Mara, at least, it is at Jyoti showed you, the hierarchy is 1/2/3, 2/3. So it is really the moment the verb is combined with the first person argument. The verb doesn't know it's an object or subject. It's supposed to be object, right? But if it's the person is first, then in the morphology, this inverse insertion is triggered. And once that whole spell out domain of the VP is inserted into this position, then this inverse actually triggers an inversion of the new affix, which is added here, which is the person of the subject, in the same way that I proposed earlier. So then you get the order, inverse order, where this person affix is now acting as an enclitic rather than a proclitic, person affix of the subject. So this is, in short, a very abstract and schematic analysis of this. We actually have analysis of all the orders, even the portmanteau stuff, but that's, it requires a much bigger time and a different platform, I guess. Okay, so in negative paradigm, the neg activates the inversion, and the inversion itself, the morpheme itself, becomes redundant. So this is our bibliography, and we invite questions if you have any clarificatory questions.
Yes, Tanmay, this is really, there are some languages, and we have data where we find this kind of thing happen, prefix, suffix.
Yes.
So I would definitely like to read, not only have the handout, but also read your paper when it's there.
Definitely. Yeah, and also I must mention that this data that we have done are based on field work. So Jyoti has done extensive field work on Mara very recently as well, although all that data is not incorporated. But we have done some work on the Bantua language in Kathmandu, and then Bantua language Jyoti has done, we have collected, and Jyoti has continued working on that in Bantua in Sikkim. So this is based on the data collected and not all from published sources, but many of them do match the published sources. For example, Dunebal's work on Bantua is great, and it matches at least one variety of Bantua that we have looked at.
This must be a very extensive work. Otherwise, you can't bring out such details. Yeah. Yes. Now, audience, please, you can interact with Tanmay and Jyoti.
Hangi Changte ma'am has unmuted, so I think she has a question.
Okay.
I think, yeah, they've already discussed my what I had question.
So have you put in the question?
No, I didn't see any.
Did you?
Yeah, just a comment. Have you looked at Scott Delancey's, and also I think Shobna Chelly has done a lot of work on Langkam, and Langkam is quite a challenging in this regard.
Yeah. Yeah, we've looked at some of the languages in Manipur, like Lamkan is also in Manipur. It's a Naga tribe, but the language is, I think, Kuki language, and also other languages which are published in the descriptive literature. And I think we have also looked at Thado, and we have looked at some of the other Kuki languages. And this sort of really marks out the territories in the Northeast, and it sort of connects that way to my earlier presentation. that we find this similarity with Kiranti and Southern Kukichin. And there must be some reason how this happens. And of course, Scott Delancey, Randy Lapora, and they have worked on this extensively for several years, for 3-4 decades. And we have consulted those. But as I said, our interest is to give a formal account, because people just don't know. There's so much work on agreement in the syntax literature. Madhumita will know, we study all that. But suppose, agreement studies were not done from looking at English or French or Italian, but we're looking at this Algonquian languages, Bantu languages, and this Tibeto-Burman languages, we would have a different theory of syntax, different theory of agreement in syntax. So this is what we're trying to tell, and we have, got into that, and this paper will be published soon, and which will catch attention of at least the formal literature, where they don't even know existence of these languages with this phenomenon.
Yes. Mimi?
No questions, but just I've been inspired by this work because the agreement system is so rich and so complicated and complex. And thank you for this work, Tanmoy sir and Jyoti.
Yes. Jyoti, you want to say something?
Yeah, yeah. It's challenging for us also, because since we are not the speakers, so sometimes it's difficult to come up with analysis, or even to gloss. It becomes difficult because we don't have proper description, at least for Mara. Mara is not being, there is one description available by Arden, but yeah, she has not looked into negative paradigms, and there are some missing, there are some gaps which has to be filled by us. So yeah, it is an ongoing work. I think we will do good.
You have to do your work. So if one linguist does it, researcher, what is left for others? Yeah. So you're going to do your work, then somebody else will come in 10 years' time and they will do their work. Yeah. It's a good work. Yeah. Very good work. Yeah. Are you a native speaker of Sikkim, or are you native of Sikkim?
No. I am Himachali. So
okay.
I'm a Kannada speaker. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Ma'am Sani has raised his hand.
Yeah, Shani, please.
Yeah, Sani.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, for the time. It's not directly related to the paper, but also with the previous talk by Sir Tanmoy. I just want to know his view on the language change related to how the language that are rich in agreement and the language that doesn't have any agreement now in the system, like the Angami Puchuri language. I just want to know which one could be more ancient, and like the previous work by Linda on Monsang shows some very interesting difference with the Tadao or other the Kokijing, the Monsang language, the agreement, and also I think Kurobe also say about the synthetic change of the Jingfo with the past and the present, how it has become, how it was different before and now. So any comments on that, sir?
I saw your comment, but that time I was having lunch, so it was after my talk. You said that you missed the beginning of my talk. In fact, that talk was about this, this puzzling phenomenon, that how great mass of a land mass where people don't speak languages with agreement, and surrounded by on two extremities by languages with this such complicated, it's much more complicated than Munda languages, for example. And Munda language also, you get this only in the North Munda languages. And here you get person hierarchy, which is much more complicated than it has even been described in the descriptive literature. Because once you look at it formally, your perspective, you're kind of wearing a different kind of lens, different kind of glass, and you start noticing things which you may not be able to see when you're doing just a descriptive study. So I think that is the strength. But yeah, the first part of our presentation, maybe I'll write to you, but definitely it was something to puzzle about. And I sort of puzzled about it, not really linguistically, but looking at it from the point of view of archaeology and genetics and migration. So my basis was that there are two ways of southern TB migration. One older with some agreement like Proto-Tibeto-Burman agreement. So I sort of side with those people who take that position with regards to Tibeto-Burman agreement. And the later migration, most probably of Shan variety, so Taikadai kind of languages, sort of erased it. And it could be, of course, there's a contact story related to that, but somebody else will do that work. I will do this work.
Thank you so much.
May I say something regarding the agreement in
Yeah,
Angami? Sahini, you had said that there is no agreement in the Angami group, but yes, it is not as rich as we find in the Kukichin languages, but we do find agreement. There is the adjectival agreement and the agreement with the verb and through tone, and when there is agreement through tone, there is an indication that there is a segmental morphological loss.
Yes.
Because tone indicates
is
that.
this in Angami?
So we do need to keep that in mind. Yes, exactly. It's there in Angami, and I had presented a paper on that yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, so okay.
Yes.
Shruti, you can say something about the tone.
Thank you.
Tone.
Yeah, tone.
Yeah, so in Mara, Bantava is not a tonal language. We don't find any, and Kiranti, most of the Kiranti languages are not. But yeah, Kukichin branch is known for their tonal system. In Mara, we do have 3 types of tones, but I have not explored it very deeply. As far as agreement is concerned, tone has no grammatical, like we have not found it yet that it has any grammatical role to play when it comes to agreement in Mara or other like Chiru, and I have looked at some grammars, Tado, Chiru, and Ashochin. So these are descriptive grammars available. I didn't find any grammatical role of tone.
Yeah, so from that point of view, what Mimi is saying will be interesting because Angami, which is not classified as one of these languages, type of languages, uses its tone to show agreement. If that's true, then we should see why would the Kukichin, resist that, or is there an overlap between these two strategies of agreement? That would be interesting simply.
So why could be that the segmental morphemes are still there,
Yeah.
It is present. Whereas in Angami, that has been lost and it has been replaced by tone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I missed Ma'am Mimi's talk due to my schedule, so I will watch YouTube and contact her again. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Any more comments or query?
There is a comment in chat box from Ma'am Chante.
Can't see it yet.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, Scott Delancey suggested that it can be worked in PTB, and I showed in my slide in the earlier presentation where that is one of the differences from the Kiranti versus Kukichin agreement. Yeah, so that debate is very well known, but we're trying to carve out a different kind of path by focusing on the same data set, but giving a new light. Okay,
we should look into all the different perspectives of working on a language, especially syntax, because morning, Professor Subbarao had also said that we do need a base of theory, because description, to get into some of the nitty-gritty of language, theory plays quite a substantive role. And if we can have theory for our own understanding, you can do a descriptive word without even bringing in theory. That is how you want to do it. To be politically correct. Yeah. So whichever way you do it, but as long as the language is analyzed correctly, the data is put forward correctly, we will have a very good documentation of the language, and that is what should be the aim for each of us researchers. Okay, so with these words, I'd like to hand over the platform to Monali. Thank you, Monali, Vijay. And Tanmoy, it was really nice listening to you after so many years. I mean, it's quite some time since we listened. Yes, definitely. I have some data I will discuss with you. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Jyoti,
thank you so much.
Yeah, Monali.
Thank you so much, Madhumita ma'am, for chairing the session on syntax so tactfully and wonderfully. And it was such an interactive session with so many interesting presentations, and it was very heavy with 5 presentations actually. I also would like to thank all the presenters for bringing in very good presentations, and also to the participants for interactive in such good discussion. And I'm sure there will be discussions going on even after the session. I think we have come to the end of our session, and I'd like to make an announcement that at 5:30 we'll have another session, which is the last session for the day, and that is morphology. So I request all the participants to be back by 10 to 15 minutes before the time, so that we can all meet together and be on time for the presentations. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Vijay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.